So as you can see, this is the sequences unit that we'll be studying. Starts off with C1. Then we've got a lot of fluency outcomes starting from F1 all the way up to F7. Then we've got our reasoning topics, R1 and R2. And finally, our problem solving, P1 and P2. Now give yourself a couple of minutes to pause and read over the outcomes in this unit and familiarize yourself with what we'll be covering in this unit as well. Moving on to C1, I can identify simple sequences versus a random set of numbers. So we've got key information here. A sequence are a set of numbers that follow a pattern or a rule. Now it's very important that you jot this down somewhere so that you can refer back to this anytime that you forget what a sequence actually is. So do pause the video and give yourself enough time to write this down. Now that you understand what a sequence is, here are a set of questions for you to try. I want you to write down for each question whether it is a sequence or a random set of numbers. Have a think about also justifying your responses and use the hint to guide you if you are stuck. For the last question, it is an extension, but it's for you to start having a think about. Is it a sequence or not? And see if you can find the name that's given to it. Give yourself about 5 to 6 minutes to have a go and do pause the video here. So that should have been enough time for you to have a go. Now let's have a look at the solutions. So for the first one, it is a sequence because the rule is that we are adding 3 each time. For the second one, you'll notice that we are adding 2 each time, and that also does make it a sequence. For the third one, it might not look as obvious, but yes, it is a sequence because there's still a rule or a pattern being followed. The rule we can see is that we are adding 3 first, then we are adding 2, then we are adding 1, and then we are repeating. Now quickly pause the video here and have a think about what could potentially be the next pattern. Could have had either that we are adding 0, then adding -1 and so on, or you could have also said that we are adding 3, then adding 2, then adding 1 again, and that constantly keeps repeating. So you could have had either of those two answers, which would have been fine. Now let's have a look at the next one. So you can see that the sequence here is decreasing and we are subtracting 3 each time. So therefore, yes, it is a sequence. For the next one, I'm adding 2, then I'm subtracting 5, then I'm adding 6 and then adding 3. So I can't seem to see a clear rule here. So yes, this would be a random order of numbers. So no, this is not a sequence. Now for the extension, if you had a go at that, that was excellent. Let's have a look at what's happening. So it might not look as obvious, but we are adding the previous terms together. So yes, it will be a sequence. Now, for the first one, we are adding 0 plus 1 to give us a total of 1. Then we are adding the 1 and the 2 to give us a total of 3. Then the 3 and the 5 to give us the 8. The 5 and the 8 to give us the number 13. And then the 8 and the 13 to give us, finally, our 21. Now, give yourself a second to think about what this sequence might be called. So it's called the Fibonacci sequence, which is a famous mathematical sequence. If you got that, that's fantastic. If you didn't, then you've got an opportunity to research what it is. That concludes our concept for this unit. And in the next video, we're ready to start having a look at our fluencies.